Okay, hi guys. Just gonna wait like 2 seconds to let a couple of people join in and then I'll start explaining. Okay, so I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who's taking their time out of their day to come and join us today. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Roger from the Expedition Project for setting this all up and for allowing me to speak to you guys and just talk a little bit more about our project. So yeah, let me just introduce myself first. Hi, I'm Julia Ruchheimer. I'm the current coordinator of the Zululand Rhino Orphanage. So today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the orphanage and what it is that we do. So yeah, let me just jump right into first the orphanage side of things and then kind of how I got to where I am. So the orphanage started in 2017. We were opened up by the Zululand Conservation Trust. So we were kind of born from tragedy. It is quite a sad story how we started. There was another regional orphanage, and this orphanage was actually attacked by poachers. So after this happened, their security was obviously extremely compromised, and so because of that, they needed an urgent place to send the surviving orphans, and they needed somewhere to send these rhinos as soon as they could to finish their rehabilitation process. And so that is when the Zululand Conservation Trust actually decided to take this onto themselves and to take on the project and the costs and to open up the Zululand Rhino Orphanage. So within a few weeks we started building and they got the area prepared, they got staff members, got a boma set up and then got ready for the animals to come through and move to us. Okay, so currently under our care we have 7 animals. We have 5 white rhino calves as well as 2 hippo orphans. And yeah, these guys are ranging. Our youngest rhino is about 8 months now and she is our newest little baby. She came to us in January. And then our oldest rhino, she is nearly 4 years old. She's about 3 years and 11 months now, and we're actually preparing her for her release, and we're hoping that she can possibly be released with her mate. She's very closely bonded to one of our other rhinos, and we're hoping that these 2 individuals will be released when next summer comes. So yeah, of course, just a little bit about us is, of course, our main aim is to completely rehabilitate these animals and put them back in the wild. The reason behind rehabilitation, or the goal behind rehabilitation, is always to actually release the animals back into the wild, and so that is the plan for all of our animals, both our white rhinos and our hippos. Other animals that were recently in our care is we did have a black rhino. He has since been released and we do still do some post monitoring with him. So although he is free and wild, we do go and track him and just make sure he's okay. This will be his 2nd winter now. So last winter it was a lot more hands-on, a lot more feeding him. He's been out just over a year now. So yes, last winter we would be finding him almost every day, just to give him some supplement food and make sure that he's doing alright. And now that he's kind of set up his own area and he's got his own territory, we are a lot more happy and confident with how he's doing. And so we've done, taken a step back, and we only track him, once every week to 2 weeks, just to make sure he's still in good condition and all of that. And we're very happy that he's doing extremely well. But yeah, that's kind of the orphanage and its setup. And then I know a lot of people ask me how I got here, so I'm just going to do that little quick story. So I've been with the orphanage for about 8 months now. I am extremely privileged and happy for the position that I've got, and it honestly still feels like a dream sometimes. So 8 months ago, that was the beginning of August last year, I actually started as a volunteer. I had come in to fill in for a staff member that was on sick leave, and I stayed here as a volunteer for I think about 2 months. Shortly after leaving, I was only home for a couple of days. I got a phone call and said that one of the staff members is actually leaving, and would I be interested in filling in that position and coming back as an employee. And of course I was beside myself happy, straight away said yes, you know, sorted out my flights because I'd actually gone home. I was in another province, sorted out my flights and came back as soon as possible. And then I stayed just as a caretaker for a couple of months, and then when our previous coordinator or manager left, they asked me to step in and fill that position. Yeah, it still feels like a dream for me, honestly. I can't believe that this is where I am, but I at the same time can't imagine being anywhere else. My Rhino babies are my absolute life. But yeah, I know everyone's most exciting things that they want to know about the projects is they always want to hear stories about individual rhinos, and I feel like the best story that I can personally share with you guys is the story of Zimmy, because Zimmy, I was actually here when she came. The other rhinos have been here since before I started, so Zimmy's the only new arrival since I've personally started, and so hers is just the easiest story to tell and almost my favorite story to tell, just because I've been involved with it from day one. So Zimmy, her full name is actually Zimmy Sile. She is our youngest baby that I was telling you about earlier, and she's about, I actually think she's about 9 or 10 months now. I know I said 8 months earlier. Sometimes I just lose track of what's going on, but she came when she was about 7 months old, so time-wise, yeah, she's a little bit older now. So little Zimmy arrived at the orphanage on the 17th of January, and it was actually very unexpected. So that morning we were actually busy dehorning our other baby. So for security reasons, we do keep our animals dehorned. This just, you know, limits the security risk and the appeal of anyone wanting to come in for them. So we were busy with our dehorning, which almost worked out really well when you think about it, because our vet was already on site. So while we were busy doing this, we got a phone call and basically said there's an orphan on the way, you guys need to start preparing. So yeah, we kind of all went, I wouldn't say panic mode, but you know, everyone kind of worked out, okay, these people are going to continue with the dehorning, these people are going to go set up, and kind of gave everyone their positions and just got to doing everything as fast as we could. And of course we knew nothing about this rhino. All we had been told was a orphan is on its way. We didn't know its age, we didn't know its condition, we didn't know anything yet. So we were a little bit nervous to see, you know, what was actually going to arrive into our care. But yeah, so we set up everything. We actually managed to finish the dehornings, which was quite nice. The orphan was coming from a little bit further away, you know, obviously with game reserves and stuff, it is quite far in between to get from one to the other. And yeah, when she arrived, she was in quite low condition. She was very skinny. She actually did look a bit younger. When we first estimated how old she was, we would have guessed maybe 4 to 5 months. But after spending a little bit more time with her and working with her, we aged her at about 6-7 months. And that was obviously in January. So now, yeah, she's pushing 9-10 months. So what actually happened was the mother, they did an autopsy the next day. They had found the body of the mother when they found her, and they did an autopsy of her, and they found the mother actually died of an infection. So the mother had an old puncture wound in her side, and it actually went into some of her organs, and this got infected and got septicemia, and this is the reason that the mom passed away. And what we kind of realized, or educated guess of ours, is that because the mom was so sick and her immune system was down, that she actually stopped producing milk and wasn't giving Zimmy milk in the last few months, weeks, days. We're not sure how long, but you know, the last little while Zimmy wasn't actually getting milk from her. And so what was quite an interesting thing, especially as it being the first new arrival or new calf that I was dealing with, it was quite interesting to see how much she didn't want milk. She was drinking water perfectly fine. She would drink water out of a water trough. She would eat the grasses that we provided for her, as well as eating on natural grass. But she was not at all interested in the milk. Not bottles, not milks in buckets, nothing. She just showed absolutely no interest in it. And I think it ended up taking me and my other carers about a month and a half before we got her to drink like her first sip of milk. And I still remember that day. It was like, oh, it was such a crazy day. I remember phoning my mom actually and just being like, you're not going to believe it, like it finally happened. But yeah, so that took us quite a while, and it was just, yeah, a trial and error process. Especially for me, it was so new for me. And so what we actually started doing is we took the milk powder and we mixed it with rhino pellets. We like crushed the rhino pellets into a powder, and lucerne, which is one of the greener grasses that they like, and we crushed all of this together and kind of made like almost balls or little um, like a paste that she could eat. And she started eating that from us, and slowly we started putting more milk powder and less of the other ingredients, if you want to call them, so making it more and more milk. And then once it was almost 100% milk, what we did is we started just making that thinner and thinner until eventually we offered her a dish of milk, and by our surprise she actually drank from it. I mean, it wasn't one of those movie moments where you put it in front of her and she just drank straight away. Like, I would be feeding her the milk powder and putting my hand in the bowl slowly until it kind of forced her to put her lips into the bowl, and then she drank it. And oh, it was honestly like one of the best moments of my life. And it just, it reminded me how grateful and happy I am to be where I am, and this amazing opportunity that I'm having. And so now she is drinking 18 liters a day. So she got put on 20 originally, and as she started gaining weight, we've seen that she's been doing very well and she's quite healthy. We was dropping her down. So I always found it very fascinating when I first started. So the most amount of milk a baby rhino ever drinks is when it's at 5 months old, and it will drink up to 24 to 25 liters a day. So from a day old up to 5 months old, the amount increases, and then once they reach 5 months old, you'll start decreasing from then this 24 liters a day until they weaned off at about 18 months. So yeah, it's really awesome. And then obviously, if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer questions, try my best. If there are questions that I can't answer, of course I will have to get back to you later. Some of you, while you guys get your questions in mind and start asking them, I'll maybe just go through some of the most frequently asked questions I have. So one of the main questions I get asked, of course, is, are rhinos the only animals that you care for? So obviously, as I mentioned in the beginning, we do have two. Sorry, I think I cut out there quickly. So what I was saying was one of the most frequent questions that I get asked is, are rhinos the only animals that we care for? And as I said in the beginning, we do have 2 hippos under our care. So obviously we are specialized in rhinos. Rhinos are our main goal, especially with funding. We rely fully on donations. So a lot of the times, people will donate towards rhinos. So of course they want their money to go to helping rhinos because they are such a well-known creature and such a endangered creature. People are, when they do donate, that's what they specifically want their money to go towards. So because of this, we do try and keep our focus on rhinos. But of course, we're never gonna just, if an animal gets brought to us or something like that, we're never gonna just like chuck it out and say no. Of course not. We will be prepared to look after any animal that is in need of care. So as I mentioned, we do have our 2 hippos at the moment. But then if any other animal gets brought into us, what generally happens is, depending on the species, we may care for it. Like hippos, for instance, we do have experience with them, and we have other hippos that they can get put with. If it was something like an elephant, for instance, I know this has happened in the past while I wasn't here, we'll act as a holding facility. So basically, if the elephant or whatever animal it is found and we're the closest center or people that can look after it, we might take it in for a night or 2, just while we're organizing with other facilities, better suited facilities, for transport to that facility. So we'll act as a holding pen and keep them stabilized for as long as we need to, and then send them off somewhere that can give them more specialized care. Of course, every type of animal and every animal, the care for them is completely different. So the care you would need to give an elephant, for example, elephants are always just my easiest example, is completely different to the care that we're giving to our rhinos. And so it's just so much better to send them to a facility that is properly equipped for that, especially things that are, more social animals and need to be able to interact with their own kind. We don't have elephants, for instance, so for us to keep a baby elephant at our facility, it's unfair on that animal, as it, you know, other people can do a better job. And then the same goes for anything like carnivores or anything like that. We're not equipped to look after those animals, so we are not able to do that. I see some questions are coming through. Nirvana just asked, was Zululand Rhino Orphanage featured in the documentary Strip? So Strip was actually based off of, well, not based, but Strip included the other orphanage that I mentioned at the beginning, the orphanage that was attacked in 2017, and then we did take on those animals. So if you guys do follow us on Instagram or Facebook or our website or anything like that, you will see that some of the animals shown in the documentary Strip are actually under our care. So two of the bigger ones is Makosi and Charlie the hippo. They are featured in Strip, and it's an adorable story. I think almost everyone has watched at least one video clip of them together, the baby rhino and the baby hippo that were best friends. So they are both still under our care, and we are obviously planning to release both of them. They no longer live together. That's definitely a question that I get asked a lot. Are they still friends? So we were able to find another hippo, and so Charlie actually got introduced to a female hippo, and he now lives with another female hippo, and Makosi lives with our other 4 white rhinos. They do have a fence in between their bomas, so they are able to see each other sometimes, and occasionally we will see them walk up to the fence and kind of greet each other, but they don't interact with each other anymore. And the reason for this is just to prepare them for release. Obviously, you can't release a rhino that thinks it's going to become best friends with every hippo, and the same for a hippo. You can't release a hippo into the wild if it thinks it's going to spend its day with rhinos and not in the water and not its natural behavior. So just for those reasons, we did end up separating them, but they are both doing very well and they are very healthy. And then also in the documentary Strip, there is a black rhino named Storm, and he's the black rhino I mentioned earlier that we do still track, and he has been released into the wild onto a reserve. He has been rewilded for about a year now. Sorry, let me just check those other questions. I see Roger has asked, can local or international volunteers get involved? Yes, so we do actually have a volunteer program. It is a relatively new and small volunteer program. We can take only 2 volunteers at a time. Of course, with everything going on in the world, with travel being banned at the moment, of course our program isn't open currently, but we do want to reopen it once travel laws and everything get opened and everyone can travel freely again. So yes, as I was saying, it's quite a small program. We take a maximum of 2 volunteers at a time. Personally, I think it's almost nicer. You get a much more hands-on and personalized experience. You're going to get to be involved in absolutely everything. It's not one of those situations where you've got so many volunteers that only a certain amount of them can do anything. But yeah, if anyone does want to find out more about that volunteer program, you can either message us on Instagram. We are Zululand_Rhino_Orphanage, or you can send me an email. My email address is admin@zululandconservationtrust.org.org. So yeah, if you want to contact me, have access to both of those, my email and my Instagram, 24/7. So if you just want to shoot me a message and say that you would like to find out more about the volunteer program, I will be more than happy to send you some more of the information on our volunteer booklet and all of that. But yeah, it's something that I would personally recommend. Obviously, I started here as a volunteer, so of course I'm going to recommend it. Of course, my situation is a little bit unique and a little bit lucky. It was good timing with the position that I ended up being. Sorry, let me just see this. Sorry. So cool. So yeah, but obviously I always recommend to people to come and volunteer. It's such an awesome experience. It's so great to actually be able to give back and to see these absolutely amazing creatures up close. Of course, we don't tame them, we don't pet them or anything like that, so it's not something that you mustn't expect that you're going to come and take like selfies with baby rhinos and all of that. Of course, it's actual hard hands-on work. You will be cleaning, you will be picking up poo, it will be some proper work, but the moment you get a bottle feed a baby rhino, I promise you it makes all of your hard work hours in the sun 100% worth it. I see I've just got another question. Do the rhinos go back into the wild or stay in the sanctuary? So this is just a little bit of what I was trying to explain earlier. Of course, the main goal or purpose of any rehabilitation center is to send their animals back into the wild. Of course, depending on how everyone looks at it, there's not that much true wild left in the world, and so our wild is considered game reserves, or whether that be national game reserves, so funded by the government, or be personal or private game reserves. But yes, of course, the goal for any of the orphans that we get is for them to be released and no longer be dependent on humans. So as I was saying, we do have our black rhino, he's been released. We've also had 2 other white rhinos in the past that have been released and are doing very successfully. And yes, a black or any rhino, black or white rhino, the age for them to be released is anywhere between 3.5 and 4 years. So this is the age that they would naturally leave their mother's side. So of course, we're still quite a new facility. We opened up in 2017. So for instance, animals that we had since 2017 are still not old enough to be released. And so of course, our stories of animals being released, we don't have as many as some of the other orphanages may have, and this is simply because our orphans are all still of a younger age. And then, as I said earlier, we do have 2 that we are hopefully going to be looking at releasing during the next summer. Of course, you want to give them the best start to their wildlife as possible. So you're going to look at the season. Of course, you're going to release them in a spring or summertime, just because food is more easily available. You're not going to release an animal in winter, because this is just going to give them a very tough and much harder start to their wildlife than what they needed. And then also, you're not just going to chuck an animal out there and say, okay, bye, I hope you do well. Of course, we do still monitor them. So when they first get released, you'll monitor them, anywhere from 2 times a day to 1 to 2 times a day, and you'll make sure that you see them daily, make sure that their condition is well, that they're eating and all of that. And then slowly, as you see that they're doing well and they're adapting well to being in the wild, you'll slowly start to decrease this to maybe, every 2nd day, every 3rd day, seeing them only once a week, seeing them only once to twice a week, seeing them once a month, until eventually they are wild animals. Of course, most reserves, you do have game drives, you do have anything like that. So your animal is never just lost and forgotten. There will always be reports. Even once you stop monitoring them as frequently, there will always be reports of when they get seen and how they're doing. So that's always very nice. So yes, to answer your question, we do release them back into the wild. We don't keep them in our sanctuary. And then do we rehabilitate other animals? So I did kind of cover this one. Currently under our care, we do have 2 hippos. And then for any other species, depending on the species, we might take them on and keep them to be rehabilitated at our center. But if we do think that they can do much better at another facility, a more specialized facility, we may just act as a holding facility until they are able to be transported to a better fit facility where they'll get the best care as possible. Of course, we specialize in rhinos, so we can give rhinos absolutely excellent care, but if something like a predator or an elephant came in, we can't offer them the best care out there. There are facilities that can offer them better care, and so rather send the animal somewhere where they have the best care possible for them. I've got a question from Terry that asks, have you prepared the hippos for life in the wild, and have you decided where they will be released? Okay, so for our hippos, obviously as our rhinos, they've been used to human contact, so we have started decreasing our contact with our hippos. We do want to release them. We haven't decided an exact date, but we are looking at hopefully doing that relatively soon, whether that be in the next few months or the next year. We are not sure yet, maybe even up to 2 years from now. But we have started preparing them for this. So we have, like I said, we've stopped our human contact. It's only if it's absolutely necessary do we interact with them. But what we're trying to do now mostly is just give them their food, put their food out for them, and then kind of leave without them coming up and interacting with us. Charlie, one of our hippos, he was rescued when he was about 2 days old, so he was hand raised and so used to human contact that of course it's not something that you can just one day all of a sudden say, okay, bye, I'm not gonna see you anymore, I'm not gonna say hello to you anymore. So we're just slowly decreasing that. And as for where they'll be released, we have not made this decision yet. There's a lot of factors that we do have to consider. So Charlie, he is quite small for a male. So because of this, we will have to look at releasing him somewhere where there aren't other male hippos. Obviously we don't want to have spent so much time and just everyone has such a bond with him that we don't want to go and throw him into a situation where we know he's not going to do well and or not going to survive. And so he is very small for a male hippo. So preferably we would want to release him somewhere where there aren't other male hippos that he would fight with. The way that a hippo pod works is you have your alpha male and then he's got a pod of females, and so he would be able to be released where there are other females because the females wouldn't fight with him. And then also both him and Moomin are quite small. Obviously they've both had hard starts to life, so we would prefer to release them somewhere where there isn't a high predator population. Things like lions and hyenas are still able to take on a hippo, especially if they're smaller, and when they're outside of the water they are quite vulnerable. So just because of that, there's a lot of different factors that need to be considered when we do decide where they will be released. Let me just see quickly, there's some more questions coming through. She asked me if I wasn't doing this job, what would I be doing? So before I came here, I actually did my field guide, my Fugasa level 1. So I am a qualified field guide. So if I wasn't able to find, how it went about is I went to go and do my field guiding. In the back of my head, of course, I knew I wanted to work with rehab and work more hands-on with animals. So that was in the back of my head, but my plan was, of course, I didn't expect to find something so quickly and so easily. I thought it was gonna be a lot longer before I was actually able to get such an amazing opportunity. And so if I wasn't able to get this or didn't get this straight away, I would have guided for a while. So that is what I'm actually qualified for. And then it's also another question I get from a lot of people is the qualifications that I have. So I do have my Fugasa, and then I'm also busy studying. I study part-time while I work, and I'm studying animal health. So yes. And then what are my long-term goals for the orphanage? So I think kind of everyone's long-term goals in general is that we just want to be able to save and protect as many of these amazing creatures as we possibly can. We do have room for expansion, but currently we are big enough for the animals that we have, and we do have holding facilities or areas that we could take in more orphans if we were to get a call. And then obviously we've always got it at the back of our minds that if it were to happen that we got more animals in and we needed to expand and become bigger, we would do so. But as weird as it is, our long-term goal for the orphanage is for the orphanage to no longer need to exist. So the long-term goal of the orphanage is actually to be able to close our doors, because it's definitely a huge dream and a lot of almost wishful thinking, as horrible as it is to put it that way. But of course the ultimate goal is for these animals to be able to not need this, for these animals to be able to survive by themselves, and they not need there not be such a need for a facility like us, because these animals are actually doing all right by themselves, and there's not so many cases of them being orphaned. We are actually, or I also get a lot of questions because I say something because I have that answer. Obviously everyone's goal in conservation and our type of industries is for to fight poaching. Of course the dream is for all of that to stop. And a follow-up question normally that I get from that is, are all of our orphans poaching survivors? Is that how we got all of our orphans? And so obviously for those who had listened to the beginning of my story when I just told a little bit about Zimmy, so she's one of the examples where she's actually not, she wasn't orphaned due to poaching. Her mom did pass away from natural causes. And so we do have other animals like that as well. Kula is, he's quite a cool story as well. Use the word cool loosely. Obviously all of these situations where you have an animal being orphaned, it's always a very sad story, but he is also, it's not a poaching related story. So Cooler, for instance, he's our third oldest, so he's our baby in the middle. Well, we've got 5 babies. He's just over 2 years old now, and he was actually born during a drought. And so what happened was his mom wasn't producing milk. They saw that she had a tumor on her teat and he wasn't able to get milk from her. And he became quite weak, and what actually happened was people were able to walk, well, the orphanage was called, and the previous manager was actually able to walk up to him and just pick him up. Like, he came right up to people. He only weighed about 50 kilos. And yeah, he didn't have that huge bond with his mom because he had not gotten milk from her. And so yeah, it's good to let people always know that of course we rescue rhinos that come from poaching incidences, but because the species as a whole needs so much help from us, we do obviously rescue every animal that we can. We need to save as many individuals as we can. Every individual counts, and so even if it's other situations and it's more natural causes, we'll still intervene and help the rhinos and try and save as many as possible. Yeah. But yeah, I think the questions have kind of slowed down a little bit. And so yeah, I definitely will be in contact with Roger, and we've already discussed that I'm sure we will set up another stream to talk to all of you guys. So if you think of any more questions, you can bring those up next time. I just want to say another thank you to Roger and the Expedition Project for letting us talk a little bit, or letting me talk a little bit about our projects and what we're doing. And then yeah, don't forget to check out the Expedition Project's website. If you haven't already looked at that, you can also look at our website. It's Zululand Conservation Trust. It's currently being updated, but it should be up soon. And then you can also follow us, Zululand Conservation Trust, on Facebook, as well as both the Zululand Conservation Trust and the Zululand Rhino Orphanage on Instagram. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. I enjoyed answering your questions, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about us. And yeah, please go and check out our different social media accounts so you can see, meet our babies. I obviously didn't talk about everyone individually. You can meet our babies, learn a little bit more about their stories. And then yes, for anyone who is interested in volunteering or our volunteer program, please just shoot me a message on Instagram, or you can send me an email at admin@zululandconservationtrust.org. Cool. Thank you very much, guys.